Hello everyone, I'm Jon Herstein, Chief Customer Officer at Box, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Josh McLean, Chief Information Officer at Kinect Corporation. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you, John. Good to be here.
We are going to be talking a bit about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how WKC is using those technologies, particularly in the scope of content.
Yep.
But before we do that, I'd love for you to talk a bit about who Kinect Corporation is and a bit of the background of the organization.
Yeah. So we're a Fortune 100 company. Our head office is in Miami, Florida, but we operate in 200 countries globally. We're an energy company with our main kind of business segments in the aviation industry, in the land industry and marine, and we have got a large sustainability presence company as well.
And can you tell us a bit about maybe the history of the company? I know you recently rebranded, and maybe a bit about kind of how the company started and got to where it is today.
Yeah, we have. Recently, it's kind of Kinect Corporation was formerly known as World Fuel Services, and we changed the name, which everyone was very happy about and relieved to do so. It started in 1984. Our CEO is actually one of the founding members of that company then. But basically, World Fuel has grown up through acquisitions. In the last 10 odd years, there's been about 50 odd acquisitions. And so from there, they've always been within the energy sector in those segments that I mentioned. So we've grown through acquisitions quite rapidly across the globe.
And what are some of the products and services that you provide to your customers?
Our core is fueling anything that flies or moves or floats. So that's our core. But we also have quite a diverse product set. We have a sustainability business where we draw wind farm energy and procure that and on-sell that. We have our own SaaS products which we supply to private planes so that when they, like an iPad application, that they can route their flights and optimize their flights through. We even have our own credit cards. We have our own de-icing machine. So it's a very eclectic group of products we have.
You can understand why World Fuel Services didn't really do it justice.
Yeah, exactly. It was the name made sense, in its inception, but as we've grown up as a company, it was time for change.
Right. So let's talk about your role. So CIO can mean a lot of different things in different companies. What's the scope of what you're responsible for?
Yeah, I look after all application development, product and application globally, all infrastructure, cybersecurity, architecture, strategy from IT globally.
Okay. Does that also include the products that you mentioned, SaaS products?
Correct.
So you build those as well?
Yeah, we build all the in-house development, all of the products I mentioned are predominantly in-house developed.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit of scope.
Well, the funny, it is a big scope, but we're not that big of a company, which I really enjoy. Like, it's 5,000 people globally, so it's quite I've worked in very large companies in banking and insurance and other sectors and telecommunications. This is the smallest company I've worked in, and I really enjoy. You can get your hands around things, and you can get stuff done really quick because it's not what you know, it's who you know in a way as well.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about Box, but not a lot. We're not going to spend a lot of time on Box, but I just want to give people context on World Kinect as a Box customer and what you do with Box, and then we'll sort of transition to content, AI, and ML.
Yeah. Well, look, I started at World Kinect in 2018. I moved my whole family over from Australia then, and when I started, we started on our kind of digital transformation as an organization. That's what kicked it off. And our strategy was around four main pillars. One of them was cloud, one of them was an agile way of working, one was data, and one was kind of talent and leadership. It was a very core pillar of it. But in that data sector, because, as I mentioned, we had grown up through acquisitions, those 50 odd acquisitions globally, not many of them had been integrated from a people, process and technology perspective. So you can imagine the proliferation of data that was everywhere, combined with the proliferation of how that data was accessed, processed, consolidation. It was a really big human manual effort to get to that. So a key part of our strategy was organising our data in a way that anyone could draw insights and access to it, And we chose Box as our number one core strategic platform for all content. So in 2018, we began to decommission and move away from the collection of other content that we had and made Box our number one. And here we are today, and it's been quite successful.
And I remember when you first became a customer, you had a lot of very heavy paper-based processes. You're out at sites, delivering fuel, having people sign off, and there was a lot of paper involved. And is that still true today, or have you transitioned?
Look, we're still not done, but the lion's share of it has been done. And a really good example is we've got our back-end financial processing team sit in Costa Rica. There's about 400 or 500 of them there. And when I went over there, they'd pride themselves on the amount of paper stacked up on their desk, because that meant the taller the stack, the more efficient they were of manually entering invoicing, bill, whatever it was, into the relevant systems they needed to be.
Like poker chips. The more you had, the better you were.
It was really interesting walking around. And the printers were just like elephants. They were huge printers. And we set out to say, like, that as an environment, or that whole area would be zero paper, no paper whatsoever. And fast forward 2 years, we've been successful. So when we went back over there, the office looked very clean, it looked very accessible. But what was really interesting, in one corner, they had piled all these giant printers. And it was almost like a graveyard of printers. So that was a great, and for what really benefited us was obviously when the pandemic hit and we went remote, because we had been on that journey, we really were in a great position. If we had never done that, I don't know how we would have survived, to be honest.
Great. Well, that's a great use case, and I'm sure retiring those printers was a big relief.
Yeah.
But let's switch from sort of the old world to the new world, and let's talk a bit about AI and ML.
Yeah.
And let's start sort of generally. What is your perspective on the benefits of AI and ML to business?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a big topic now. Even we had our board last week, and it was the dominant topic of our board discussion. So I read an article, I think it was McKinsey, saying this is the first, generative AI has been one of the very first technology releases that is engaged at a board level. Most others have kept out of the board or have been interesting, but this is not. And for us, we've been kind of dabbling in it for a number of years now. We started off very much investing in creating our own talent. That was a big lesson learned. It's very difficult to not only attract but retain and grow. And so we've since then, through that journey, we've moved into leveraging more auto ML, so not so much AI but more machine learning. But there's lots of products these days that have pre-configured algorithms that you just simply download and pay per consumption based, and it makes the barrier to entry really, really easy. You still need to know kind of what you need to have your data well organized. That's the foundational. It needs to be well organized and structured to run these algorithms off. So that's how we've been playing in it. I believe it's very much I heard the term co-pilot, which I really thought was a really good term, because it's a productivity enhancer and increase, but it's very much in partnership with who does the work today. So that's how we view it. It's a co-pilot. It hasn't replaced anyone or anything. It's more made things more efficient, faster, and accurate, and it's been successful for us to date.
And you were really doing this before sort of the revolution of generative AI that kind of hit us back in November, December of last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a big one of the big lessons around that was we didn't have our data organized. We started too early and thought we could just cordon off some data to draw insights from. And so because of that, we've really focused on organizing our data in all the silos it was, structuring that, getting that centralized, and a very robust API strategy as well, because I think that's fundamentally important. If you have a rich set of data that is accessible via APIs, then you can really open the door to a lot of things. So the last few years, that's been our focus, as well as then kind of increasingly maturing our ML and AI use cases. And so when generative AI is here now, it's really, it's a good timing for us.
So you mentioned data, you mentioned content. When you think about maybe some of the use cases that you've applied already, were those mostly pointed at structured data or unstructured content or both? Like where are you sort of playing with this?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Mainly in the data space to begin with, and our business, like particularly the aviation business, a lot of that is, like I mentioned, we have an application that helps pilots track what route to optimize and to fly. And so using internal and external data to provide that service is an example where we started out, toying around with the machine learning. We've since gone into not heavily into content, but that's certainly an area I think is an obvious one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to talk about that a bit more. Are you thinking about specific ideas or use cases where you think you can apply, again, some of these newer technologies to unstructured content?
Yeah, the thing that I think we need to solve first is permissions. So a lot of why Box is really important for us is the data privacy and accessibility and limitations it have via permissions. So if you start to turn kind of generative AI onto that, you also need to adhere to the existing permissions that are in base. So that's where that's where we're still kind of working out what makes sense there for us. It's easy to say, I have all this content in here, can I go and draw insights on it? But you need to make sure the data privacy is ticked first as well. So that's where we haven't gone too far because of that.
Right. Yeah, you could imagine one of your human workers asking a question and getting back an answer from content that they don't have actual access to.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And so you kind of scale that across the organization, and then that's where that's what we're thinking through, is how do you make sure you can scale securely? Because the search one's an obvious one. It's a very obvious and common one, but you can quickly move some search to insights, and so that insights again needs to be based upon the permissions you have. So
that's going to be interesting one to kind of
but I think Box is very, because the obvious question is there's so much choice now in Gen AI and what you in other certain providers, but I think Box is well placed because you inherently have the capability and built that up within the platform itself around the permissions and data privacy and access. So that I think is the key. That's the magic. The AI on top of that really is an additive. So I think that's why it's really interesting for me.
So if you could imagine far enough ahead to say, okay, we've worked through the privacy concerns, what's a use case that you're most excited about where you think you can apply this?
I think there's a multitude of ones when it comes to content, whether it be contracts and what type of contracts, forecasting, predictive, reading back on what we did, what we didn't do in order to go forward, from a credit and invoice and tax perspective, because we store all of our records of truth when it comes to financials in there as well. So, again, going through that to see what from a credit, what customers have good credit, what customers don't, the predictiveness around that. So I think for me, because of the variety of content we have, those insight use cases become really, really interesting. Because at the moment we've got humans doing that, right? And it's time consuming, it's slow. You need to know what you're looking for, which means there's certain expertise levels that goes with that.
Right.
So it kind of removes or enables, those people to do it much quicker. Therefore, the insights they get, they can move on to something a little bit more substantial as well.
And that's a lot of how we're thinking about it too. It's not to replace the humans doing those jobs, but to make them more effective, faster, more accurate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our legal department, I was speaking to our head of legal, and she's got folks that spend hours just going through contracts.
Looking for specific clauses or words or something.
Whatever it may be, but they're spending hours and hours and hours. So to remove the need for that and just simply pass up the information they're looking for, which they can act on, that time is well saved.
Yeah. And it feels like there's also a downstream benefit of just job satisfaction. Like what's more satisfying to actually then do something useful with that knowledge, or to go find,
That's
specific
exactly
words
right.
in it?
Yeah. Which is why I like the co-pilot term, because it's more helping them be more productive and they're, more, remove the tedious work and get on to the more insightful work. Yeah.
Right. So you talked about privacy. Any other concerns you have, like just from an ethical perspective? Anything you say, well, we wouldn't use AI for that particular application?
You know what, nothing specific to date. It's certainly been a topic we've talked about, and probably the ethics more. It came up at the same conversation as data privacy, and so the right people who take the legal example we're just using, those folks who have historically done that and got the experience should be the ones that have access to do that kind of search function we talked about, as opposed to giving that to anyone in the organisation. So I think that's where but again, it's new for a lot of people. So I think this is part of the lessons we'll learn as we go into this is what works, what doesn't. But our approach has certainly been probably a cautious one, so to speak.
Try it in different areas, see how it works, and then kind of iterate from there.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's there's a lot of known, but there's still a lot of unknown, and I think that trialing it to learn, to grow from, it's worked in the past. It's a tried and true method for a lot of kind of new technology, and I think this one is exactly the same.
Yeah. And I think we're all going to find ourselves in that boat of just trying, testing, seeing what works, seeing how it adds value to these processes, and then going from there.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to be on the journey with you. We're certainly doing a lot in the AI space, and you've got a lot of content on Box. We're excited to kind of pair those up and see what cool things we can do.
Yeah. I think the other one for Box is Relay as well. Because you think of a workflow, it's a data gathering and decision making, and the insights you can draw as part of Relay using AI would be really interesting for me as well. I think there's a few there.
So insights into the workflows, or you're saying insights that would then help drive the workflows?
Will drive the workflows.
Right.
I think that would be. It's almost like that next best action. So you hear. I used to work in a call center. Not work, but I ran the technology for a call center. A lot of them, and what's happening in big time in generative AI now is, as a customer calls in, you profile the customer, what you do, and you offer up to the call center person the next best action, the insights you get. And I think in workflow, you got a similar opportunity there, which would be really interesting.
Right, so it's like, go find me all the contracts that look like this, or have these sort of characteristics, and then once you find them, that then dictates what you do next.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to help you with that, and excited for what's next. Great conversation, and it sounds like you all are on the forefront of thinking about this, and again, we're excited to be part of it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So thank you for taking the time.
No worries.
And I hope you enjoyed this conversation, folks. If there's more information you'd like, or you want to just learn more about what we're doing here, go check out box.com, and we'll see you next time.